Hi students, welcome to lesson number 18 on women empowerment in India, schemes, policies, strategies and programs. Now the introduction. Nearly half of the world's population is made up of women. However, India has a disproportionately low female population compared to its male population. There are some regions where they are not treated equally to males in terms of their social position. Women in Western nations enjoy the same rights and status as men in all spheres of life. However, discrimination and limitations based on gender continue to exist in India. She was sometimes concerned as a goddess and other times just as a slave due to the paradoxical circumstances. The policies and programs that were put in place to empower women are the main topic of this lesson. The shift from the notion of welfare to empowerment or eventually to development demonstrates how women's many responsibilities are being acknowledged. Going back in time, interesting to remember that volunteer organizations were in charge of social welfare programs in pre-independent India. Even while the state was still expected to provide for things like health and education, almost no national program existed to offer such welfare services. After independence, the state became aware of its responsibility for enhancing the social services offered by non-profit organizations. In 1953, the Central Social Welfare Board was established as a result of this in order to provide welfare services to women, children and other underprivileged groups of society. This board aimed to enhance welfare programs, implement them in rural locations and support non-profit organizations. From those days, when the emphasis of the program was on acquiring information and skills to become better mothers and housewives, to the present, when the emphasis is on educating women about their own rights, we have gone a long way. The objectives for the lessons are: after studying this lesson, the students will be able to discuss the meaning of women's empowerment, including social, economic and political dimension. Second, they can analyze the status of women, describe the constitutional safeguards and legislations for women and analyze the plans and policies and evaluate the programs for women in India. Now, what is meant by empowerment? The Oxford Dictionary defines empowerment as to give someone the power or authority to do something, to authorize, to give somebody more control over their own life or the situation they are in. Power is defined as the ability to control people or things, right or authority of a person or group to do something. It offers women a sense of control over their own life, enabling them to analyze options, make judgments and take appropriate action. However, they are prevented from accessing resources due to differences in caste, class and ethnicity. According to Panda, the term empowerment has been in use since the 17th century and is currently considered an enabling aspect of opposed to the past when it meant to invest with power and authority. In the American state of Massachusetts, women were guaranteed the power to vote in the year 1611. Another notable occurrence occurred on March 8, 1857, when female workers in American textile and tailoring industries went on strike in favor of set hours and equal pay. When their voices finally broke through, the struggle resumed. In recognition of this, every year on March 8, we observe International Women's Day. As Albert Camus said, "Don't walk behind me, I may not lead. Don't walk in front of me, I may not follow. Just walk beside me and be a friend." In the Program of Action 1992, women's empowerment is considered primary for social change. So, giving importance to collective reflection and decision making, it enlists parameters of empowerment which are like building a positive self-image and self-confidence, developing ability to think critically, building up group cohesion and fostering decision making and action, ensuring equal participation in the process of bringing about social change, encouraging group action in order to bring about change in the society, and providing the withdrawal for economic independence. On October 26, 2006, the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act of 2005 became effective. For the first time, a woman's right to a violent-free home is acknowledged by this statutory. In doing so, this law establishes a framework to make it easier for her to access justice and other support services, as well as recognizes a woman's right to live in a shared family and offers a detailed definition of domestic abuse. According to the Lawyers Collective's Women's Right Initiative from 2007, this law is a first step in extending women's human rights into the home. On September 9, 2005, the Hindu Succession Amendment Act became operative. The Hindu Succession Act 1956 was amended by this act to eliminate its gender discriminatory restrictions and grant daughters the same rights to ancestral property as sons. There is also agricultural land on this site. The National Rural Employment Guarantee Act of 2005 went into effect in 200 districts on February 2, 2006 and is slated to cover all of rural India in 5 years. The Act goals is to increase the livelihood stability in rural areas by offering every household with adult members who agree to perform unskilled manual labor at least 100 days of guaranteed pay employment in a fiscal year. So, it is a crucial endeavor for the economically sustainable growth of the agriculture sector and which aims to strengthen the natural base of rural livelihood and generate long lasting assets in rural region by giving employment on projects that address chronic poverty causes like drought, deforestation and soil erosion. Now let us look at the policies for development and empowerment of women. Committee on the Status of Women in India in 1974, the National Policy on Education in 1986, the National Perspective Plan in 1988-2000, the Shram Shakti Report in 1988 and the National Policy on Empowerment of Women 2001 all provide policy recommendations. Given the era, it was written in the 1974 report of the Committee on the Status of Women in India is a bold work. Regarding the socio-cultural issues, the committee provided a number of recommendations. It advocated a planned procedure and coordinated effort to bring about changes in the societal attitudes and institutions. It was necessary to rally public opinion, raise awareness of issues like dowry, polygamy, extravagant wedding spending, child marriage and spearheaded a fight for women's legal rights. So, in order to accomplish this, the government would have to work in conjunction with non-profits dedicated to women issues. The Committee on Women and Law advocated such marital regulations that provide women an equal standing. This was to be accomplished by outlawing polygamy in Muslim law, enforcing the Hindu Marriage Act's prohibition against bigamy, limiting child marriage which is still common in rural areas and granting minor girls from all communities the option to repudiate marriage upon reaching majority whether or not the union had been consummated. It outlines the significance of marriage registration, the creation of family courts to settle matrimonial disputes amicably and the adoption of a uniform civil code, that is article 44, that values secularism, science and modernization, because The persistence of personal laws results in inequality between men and women, among other things. The committee stated that women should be involved in economic growth on a national level, and this calls for the Maternity Benefit Acts of 1961 to be expanded to other sectors of the economy. That is, the establishment of daycare centers for working women, the equalization of wages and its inclusion in the Minimum Wages Act, training programs for women in industries to prevent their layoffs, part-time employment for them, establishment of a national employment service to assist women by giving them the necessary information, and the provision of special leave without payoff up to 12 weeks. The committee emphasized equality of education opportunities as well. It recommended that co-education should be followed, common curricula should be followed for both girls and boys, and it recommended 3 years of preschool education for all children through balwadis in rural areas and urban slums. Universalization of elementary education for children in the age group of 6 to 14 years and introduction of sex education at middle school onwards, free secondary education for girls, gender equality to be women in the curriculum along with others. So, by integrating the community in educating women, the gender gap in literacy can be closed. The committee recommends reserving seats in municipalities for women as a temporary measure, political parties adopting a clear policy regarding the proportion of women they would support in elections for the parliament and state assemblies, and the inclusion of women in all significant commissions established to discuss socio-economic issues. The committee also recommends several changes such as including amendments to the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act that give women choice over their lives, campaigns for family planning to shift conceptions and fertility where women are blamed for the sex of the child and other provisions. It implies that priority should be paid to preventive and promotional health care rather than curative treatments. Now, let us look into the National Policy in Education. The National Policy in Education 1986 emphasizes on the need to equalize educational opportunities by removing disparities that exist in society. So, under the section Education for Women's Equality, the policy observes that education will be used as an agent of basic change in the status of women. The national educational system will play a positive interventionist role in the empowerment of women, and this will be done through curriculum, teacher training and active participation of the educational institutions. It also promotes women's studies and also encourages educational institutions to initiate programs for women's development. Women's literacy will be encouraged, and any hurdles in obstructing their access and retention in elementary education will be identified and tackled. Moreover, gender stereotyping in vocational and professional courses will be eliminated, giving way to women's participation in modern occupations. Now, what is the National Perspective Plan for Women? The National Perspective Plan for Women 1988-2000 evaluates how development strategies and programs affect women from a holistic perspective. It attempts to promote social fairness, economic growth and the inclusion of women in the mainstream economy. The plan recommends actions to be taken in order for women to catch up to males by the year 2000 in the areas of agriculture, employment and training, supportive services like fuel, feed water, crèche and housing, education, health and family welfare. Women related development dimensions in agriculture and related services need to be considered, and women should be given access to productive resources. The plan states that new avenues of employment have to be made available for women, improving the present working environment, employment and productive potential which will enable them to become an articulate and conscious workforce, thus assuming the status and recognition of a worker. There is another mission called as a National Literacy Mission, also involve women's organization. So, here health is an important indicator of well-being for women's development. The plan recommended that the amniocentesis test can be banned. So, there is a need to encourage parents to have female children. So, health services should cater to women's health problems. The plan recognizes that the women's movement have struggled to get equal legislation. So, in spite of the constitution and various laws, equality has not been extended to women in society. So, still there is a greater incidence of violence against women in various forms. Thus, a multi-pronged group is required that monitors drafting of legislations, judicial decisions and such matters at center and state level. So, it is important to generate legal literacy among women so that they are able to exercise their political rights. Media and communication plays an important role in changing attitudes towards women, and the support has to be sought in this regard. So, voluntary action can also improve the status of women, particularly in rural areas. It can enable women to become self-reliant and act as a catalyst in organizing them for collective action. So, such agencies can be involved in the government run employment and support services for women. Now, let us look at the Shram Shakti report of the National Commission on Self-Employed Women and Women in the Informal Sector. So, to conduct a thorough investigation into the working and living conditions of disadvantaged women, the Shram Shakti report of the National Commission of Self-Employed Women and Women in the Informal Sector was established in 1988. It encompasses unprotected labor, self-employment, wage labor, contract labor and wage laborers. Women work hard, yet their contributions to the household and the economy are not acknowledged. Therefore, women workers should be defined broadly to include labor that she undertakes for pay or without pay, either at home or elsewhere, as a worker or on her own dime. What is the National Policy for Empowerment of Women 2001? So, according to the National Policy for Women's Empowerment of 2001, the legal system would be sensitive to the concerns of women, and to ensure that offenders are punished appropriately for their crimes, new laws will be stricter and older ones will be amended. So, to guarantee gender equality, personal rules governing marriage, divorce, support and guardianship will be modified. Women will be made equal partners in the political realm in terms of power sharing and decision making. So, this policy acknowledges the importance of integrating gender views throughout the development process. So, here women can be initiators, participants and beneficiaries. Women's challenges and concerns must be highlighted in all plans, policies, legislations and programs of action in order to achieve this. The policy states that any improvement in women's conditions require their economic empowerment. So, policies and poverty eradication programs should take into account the needs of women, since they make up a large portion of people living below the poverty line, have low intra-household positions and experience continuous unfairness. So, such actions would aid them in developing the necessary capabilities. So, they would be given access to microcredit by financial institutions to help them launch new businesses. The macroeconomic policies must take into account the perspective of women. So, in order to ensure social empowerment, by putting an emphasis on science and technology, the environment, housing and shelter, science and education, preventing violence and harnessing and regulating the media, social empowerment can be secured. So, policy ensures equal access to girls and women in the field of education through the elimination of discrimination, the universalization of elementary education, and increase in the enrollment and retention of girls, and improvement in the quality of education, gender sensitive curriculum and education system, as well as decrease in the gender gap in secondary and higher education, as well as the achievement of sectoral time targets for vulnerable women who are SC, ST, OBC and minority women. The policy promises a holistic approach to women's health with an emphasis on nutrition. It intends to meet the National Population Policy 2000 which stated demographic objectives for baby and maternal mortality rate. So, here women will be able to exercise their legal right to procreate. The plan and address the issue that women face, that is the registration of births, deaths and wedding will become required. So, in addition, women experience prejudice within the household and suffer from malnutrition during their reproductive years, adolescence and infancy. So, both urban slums and rural areas must have access to toilet facilities and clean drinking water. So, the goal of the policy is to incorporate the viewpoint of women while developing policies and programs for environmental preservation and restoration. So, the policy is aware of the value of gender budgeting to incorporate gender consideration into the planning process. The Women's Component Plan is discussed and the Development of Women and Child Department as a nodal ministry is tasked with periodically reviewing and monitoring the quality and quantity of the component plans implementation in partnership with the Planning Commission. So, women must be given political empowerment in order for them to participate effectively in politics. Even Indian citizen who is 18 years of age or older, regardless of caste, class or gender, is guaranteed the right to vote under Article 326. The 73rd and 74th Constitution Amendment Act 1993 are inserted in Part 9 and 9A of the Constitution. The articles 243 to 243O in Part 9 apply to panchayats, whereas the articles 243P to 243ZG in Part 9A apply to municipalities. So, according to Article 243D, women must hold at least 1/3 of the total number of seats in each panchayat that would be filled through direct elections. So, 1/3 of the total seats set aside for SC, ST women relative to the number of seats set up for the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Now, let us look at the programs for women. To help women become independent, the Ministry of Women and Child Development has created a number of programs in the areas of work, education and health, and in this sector some of the key programs are like Samakya Mahila and others. So, according to K.K. Kular, the women's movement known as Mahila Samakya has changed the lives of women in 14,000 villages across 60 districts in 9 states, that is Karnataka, Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, Bihar, Assam, Jharkhand, Uttar Pradesh and Uttaranchal. It got its starts in response to the 1992 Program of Action for the National Policy on Education from 1986. In addition to women's non-formal education, it now focuses on governance, human rights and health issues with the goal of empowering women to bring about a society that is gender just. This program has also inspired women in other states to fight for causes that are important to them, such as the alcohol epidemic in Haryana, polygamy in Himachal Pradesh and Devadasis in Tamil Nadu. The fight against dowry violence against women, infanticides and death of fetuses and child labour is continuous. Auxiliaries of the Mahila Samakya scheme include Didi banks, that is also called as sister banks, Kishori Sanghas and Jago Behan, Arise Sister. Through education, this initiative has given women the power to stand up for themselves, become prominent in their families and communities, and demand accountability from the government. Comprehensive package of services such as health care, elementary education, crèche facilities, market linkages, etc. are provided besides access to credit. During the 9th plan period, about 2,55,635 women beneficiaries were covered under 66 projects implemented in the states of Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Gujarat, Haryana, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir, Kerala, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Manipur, Nagaland, Orissa, Tamil Nadu, Tripura, Uttaranchal and West Bengal. The 10th plan period has provided training to 2,15,651 women beneficiaries under the scheme. Hostels for working women and the scheme of assistance for construction or expansion of hostel buildings for working women with daycare centers for children is in the implementation since 1972-73. And under this scheme, financial assistance is also provided to the non-government organizations, cooperative bodies and other agencies engaged in the field of women's social welfare, women's education, etc. and for the construction of buildings for working women's hostel. It envisages provision of safe and affordable hostel accommodation to working women. Next, prevention of trafficking and women and children. The main legislation like Immoral Traffic Prevention Act 1956 lays down provision for providing stringent punishment to the perpetrators of such crime. In addition, the Indian Penal Code also provides provisions for crimes related to trafficking. India is also a signatory to various international and regional conventions such as UN Conventions against transnational organized crime, with its protocol to prevent, suppress and punish trafficking in persons, especially women and children. SAARC Convention on Preventing and Combating Trafficking of Women and Children in Prostitution, Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women, and Convention on the Rights of the Child. The Scheme for Relief and Rehabilitation of Victims of Rape 2005 provides for constitution of criminal injuries, relief and rehabilitation board at each and every district to award compensation to rape victims, and district monitoring committee to provide shelter, protection, legal and medical aid and other rehabilitative measures for the victims. The scheme has been included in the report of the working group on empowerment of women for the 11th plan. Swavalimbam Swavalam scheme, previously known as Norwegian Agency for International Development or the Women's Economic Program, was started in 1982-83 with the objective of providing training and skills to the poor and needy women and women from weaker sections of the society such as scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, to facilitate them in obtaining employment or self-employment on a sustained basis. There are 36 traditional and non-traditional trades for which assistance is provided under the scheme. Now, let us look at the various women empowerment schemes. Women and children are considered a significant part of Indian society, and to empower them, the Government of India has launched many welfare schemes. Major program is Beti Bachao Beti Padhao scheme. The Beti Bachao Beti Padhao Yojana is a program that Indian government has started to empower women who make up almost half of the population of the nation. The Indian government's goal in this program is to protect girls and give them self-confidence through a quality education. Aside from major cities and towns, many Indian villages have a negative attitude against girls receiving a good education. So, this plan challenges the traditional mindset of such Indians. Beta Beti Ek Saman is the motto of the government. The start date for this program was January 22nd, 2015. All of the female children that participate in this program are beneficiaries. The objectives of these programs are to eliminate sex discrimination based on gender, ensure the survival of every female child, ensure that every girl kid in the nation receives at least a basic education. Second important program is One Stop Center. All of the nation's women and girls benefit from this program. Even though we Indians have reached Mars and the moon, many parts of the nation still do not recognize women on an equal footing with men. The Indian government has introduced the One Stop Center program in an effort to combat this mentality and punish those who believe that men should be allowed to abuse women. The goal of the plan is to provide and ensure support and protection in public and private places against violence. Public and private places include home, workplace, gym, mall or any other place in the country, and to offer spontaneous help in an emergency and non-emergency situations. So, this help can be anything like medical, legal, counseling and other services. There is one more program called as Indira Gandhi Maitrava Sahayog Yojana, that is IGMSY. The Indian government has developed this program in order to guarantee safe deliveries and appropriate lactation in females. The government under this scheme ensures that pregnant ladies get appropriate care, attention and institutional service for the safe delivery of a child. Sometimes, due to lack of awareness, women do not breastfeed their newborns. The beneficiaries under this scheme include pregnant and lactating women. So, through this program, the government has made sure that infants receive adequate breast milk for at least 6 months after birth. So, beneficiary women also receives financial aid under this program. Another important scheme or program is Swadhar Graha. This program is designed to give women access to necessities. Additionally, it attempts to give women throughout the nation moral and emotional support. So, the program's goal is to take care about helping impoverished women by giving them with food, clothing and medical attention, and to act as a spiritual support and provide all means to begin their life after suffering emotional or financial harm, and to provide them with legal instructions and guidance to assert their legal rights. Another major program is the Rajiv Gandhi National Creche Scheme for the children of working mothers. And this program was created specifically for working mothers. Both mothers and their children will benefit from this program, and the planned main goal is to offer daycare services to working women's children, to prevent any deprivation of well-being for children, and to provide the kids with an intellect, social and physical education. To sum up, women must participate in and contribute to their own self-empowerment in order for women's empowerment to be viable. Formulating strategies for feminized poverty reduction, women's education promotion and the prevention and eradication of violence against women is necessary. We have talked about a variety of laws and initiatives aimed at empowering women. Women's equality is guaranteed by a number of constitutional protections and laws. Women's contribution into society are recognized through policies including the CSWI, National Policy on Education, National Perspective Plan for Women, Shram Shakti Report and National Policy on Empowerment of Women, which also offer recommendations for empowering women. They view women as active contributors to development rather than only recipients of assistance schemes. And as a result of these policies, numerous programs were launched, and these encourage women to reach their full potential and live honorable lives.